the Impeach-O-Rama, which really this has now become, it's a complete farce. This impeachment inquiry, first of all, they never went to the Congress and had a full vote. It's an inquiry which simply gives them the license, the Democrats, to go around now and subpoena a bunch of people. They've subpoenaed Pompeo, the Secretary of State, Rudy Giuliani, Bill Barr. Now, in the meantime, the Republicans have no subpoena power. So the minority has no subpoena power because this isn't like it's an impeachment hearing. This is an inquiry. So what Pelosi has done is she has given the Democrats who are in charge of the committee's full subpoena power. They have not reciprocated. So the Republicans can't call a witness. That's just the beginning of what a farce this is in trying to stop this president. Now, as I said yesterday, there's no way this president is going to be impeached or removed from office. The real goal they have, is tarnishing Bill Barr, the Attorney General, because they know the indictments are coming. Barr's investigative team investigating the origin of the Russian collusion hoax, the fake FISA warrant, the lies they said. They know that's coming. Inspector General Horowitz, his almost acting special prosecutor without the powers, Dodd from Connecticut. Barr is a very good team here. And the Democrats know these indictments are coming, and they're going to be damning on Comey, McCabe, or his wife, Strzok, Page, a whole bunch of them are in for quite the ride. So what they're trying to do is tarnish Bill Barr, because Barr is not a politician. He's a justice official. So they can't say that he's partisan in that mode. So what they have to do is discredit him now. That is why part of this is happening. The other reason this is happening, and you really have to understand this, is the real hard left here. The ones, not the ones that are out throwing Molotov cocktails like Antifa and going around on Facebook. The real hard left operatives that understand how to get power. Like those that were surrounded, those who surrounded Barack Obama. They understand how to win and what to do with the power they have. Like when Obama became president and they filled every single political appointee position they could. Even jobs that didn't exist, they filled. And people would go in without a phone and a computer and sit at a cubicle. So they could pay them and then the government could pay them and then they could deploy them whenever they wanted politically. So it was simply a payment holding ground. I might be there for 6 months getting paid by the government in some agency to do absolutely nothing. I didn't have a computer or a phone. But I clocked in, I played solitaire, and in 3 or 4 months I could be deployed to a state for OFA, Obama for America. They got it. The same hard left that understands how to win and get power are petrified of a second Trump term. And I'm telling you this, I know this for a fact. They are absolutely petrified. Because this is a transformational president who is not following their normal rules and who was not intimidated by the left or by the media. This playbook they have had is the media has their back. The lying fake news legacy media becomes their football offensive line. They move the ball down the field. Everything is coordinated, just like this phony whistleblower account from some person that remains anonymous because they know if his name came out, he'd be exposed as a left-wing activist that happens to be working in the CIA. Just because you have a job in a government doesn't mean that you're not an activist. And it goes to credibility. That's why they'll protect him or her, or whoever it might be. This was a coordinated effort. The timing of it, the lawyering up, the exploiting the whistleblower law in order to tie this president down. Look, you know how many judges he's appointed? He's appointed 150 judges. 150 judges. Conservative judges throughout the U.S. court system. Do you think the left, the hardcore left, is not cognizant of this? They're looking at these 150 people. Trump is transforming America for 20, 30, 40 years. Another term, I mean, he could have appointed at the end of a second term 350 judges. That changes everything. Likely in a second term, he could have one or two more Supreme Court appointees. One or two. Certainly in a second term, the older conservatives are going to retire because they know they'll be replaced by another conservative. Plus, Ruth Bader Ginsburg cannot serve through another second term. She's already said she's going to retire in 2021 or 2022. I don't remember the exact date. Bless her heart, that's her decision. So they're playing for keeps here. And they can't control Trump. He doesn't play by their rules. He's a transformational president. He's bringing our supply chains back. He's standing up to the globalists. I mean, his speech at the UN was probably one of the best speeches I've ever heard at the United Nations, if you believe in the America First agenda. It got no coverage. Why did it get no coverage? Whistleblower. Timed for when he was going to the UN. Now, they're ranting and raving about Australia. That the president was exerting pressure on Australia about the Mueller probe. The conversation with Australia happened after Mueller testified and the probe was over and he was found to be innocent with no collusion and no obstruction. So the lying fake news media lied about that. The New York Times lied about that. They don't care. See, there's no more vetting. There's no more news, people. And this is why I'm doing a column on this every single day. We're in an environment now, Tuesday, October 1st. There is no more news. Everything's lies and narrative. Look at what happened in Northern Virginia the other day. An African-American young girl, 12 years old, at some private school in Northern Virginia, claimed that she was harassed by 3 white boys and they cut off her dreadlocks. This went national. Every media outlet picked it up. NBC ran with it. Headline news. Nobody vetted it. Nobody confirmed it. Nobody talked to anybody any witnesses. Nobody cared. The fact that it's true or not doesn't matter. It fit a narrative. And so NBC, which is the worst, runs with the story nationally. Now, unfortunately for all involved, the young lady says it was not true. And so everybody has to apologize to everybody. And it's a shame for everybody involved, the school, the boys, the little girl, everything is bad. But it ran on national news. And so if you're in Seattle, you're not reading the disclaimer, the story, the follow-up story in the Washington Post. You're simply not reading it. You simply think that happened. I go back to the story when I was chairman of the Trump campaign last in October 2016, and NBC runs a story that the Trump campaign is pulling out of Virginia. Nobody called me. Nobody called the state director. Nobody called New York. Nobody called Dave Bossie, Kellyanne Conway. They went with a story anonymous and went with it nationally. I did 34 TV interviews across Virginia in 5 days. I couldn't stop it. Once NBC went with that, nationally, it's over. It's scrolling along the bottom of CNN, Trump pulling out of Virginia. And I'm there as chairman, and I know that I just secured $2.2 million in the final weeks to advertise. I couldn't tell anybody that. I'm not going to tip my hand. I also knew that we got a commitment from the presidential campaign that they were coming to Loudoun County on Sunday night. I also knew we had a commitment from the vice president to come to Northern Virginia on Saturday night. I couldn't say any of this. All I could say is that it was not true. And the rumor started because North Carolina called us up and borrowed a bus for a weekend for voter registration. Fake news, but see, it fit a narrative. And when I got a phone call from my son, who was in Reno at the time, calls me up at, when I get off my show, and he's like, it's 3 hours behind, so it was like 7 a.m. there. He says, hey, Dad, what happened? I'm getting ready for work here to go to the college, as he's a college professor, and I see scrolled to the bottom of this screen, Trump pulled out of Virginia. I thought you were the chairman. What happened? Did you get fired? I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? See, once they have figured this out. Once the national legacy lying fake news media puts a story out, to stop it is impossible. There's not enough man hours in the day. So this is how they manipulate things. Why did NBC do this? Why did they not check? They didn't want to check, because if they checked, they wouldn't have been able to run the story. What they wanted to do was run the story nationally that Trump was pulling out of Virginia, so nobody would go to work that Saturday. No volunteers, no licking envelopes, no knocking on doors, no phone calls, no app work, nothing. Nobody is going to go to work for somebody in a state where the campaign gave up on it and pulled out. Now, as it turned out, we got beat by 5, and we had no intention of pulling out, and I had just gotten funding and commitments. Yet as chairman, because we didn't want to tip our hand to McAuliffe and Clinton and Kaine, I couldn't divulge any of it. This is what we're dealing with today. And this is why I'm going to continue to write every day and expose it. Because I'm the only one doing it. And if you haven't signed up for my newsletter, you really should. Go to johnfredericksradio.com, johnfredericksradio.com, and sign up for my newsletter right there. But this is just an example of what is taking place. The Democrats are petrified of Trump, petrified of him winning again and transforming and changing the country again. And they don't know what to do about it. So what do? They launch this bogus impeachment hoax.